Again, this is a version 8 release, so this webinar will focus on version 8. Some of the features that we will be talking about that are included in the version 8, there's a job register dashboard for overall bid management. We have a bid analysis tool for risk management, allowing evaluation of historical bids. We have a bid recap graphs to provide a visual perspective of the estimates detail to help you with your risk management. Some of the other features that we have in the version 8, we have the collapse assembly feature, which now includes the material dollars and the labor hours. We have custom columns in the takeoff and the summary, which will allow you to see only the column that you desire to see. In the phase tree, we can now rearrange our phases or subphases. We can move them up or down in the list that we want. And we can also edit the bid and change order proposal directly from both the takeoff and the summary screens. So what we'll do now, I am in my job register screen, and I'm going to go over here to my sidebar and click on dashboard. Once I click on dashboard, the dashboard is a visual snapshot of my jobs and my bids. The dashboard will display comprehensive bid history statistics so that you can evaluate what jobs are bidding, who they're bidding to, and what the bidding success is. These statistics will help improve your effectiveness in bidding resources and successes. So we'll look at some of that. So in the dashboard, when we first come into the dashboard, you see several graphs across the top and the bottom of this screen, visual references to many of the statistics, including these two lists right here in the center of the screen. You have a bid due date list and you have a bid completion status. The first one is the bid due date. This displays what projects are currently bidding, due date that you have assigned, and who the estimator is. So that's the information that we're going to get here. This top portion will only show active jobs. Again, some of you all may have been archiving jobs to remove them from the screen when you're no longer, bidding or whatever, so those jobs will not show. So if you have some archived jobs and you do want them to be part of this bid due date, then they need to be restored back onto the system. One of the things here, this information, the due date and so forth, remember when you create a job and you go down here to your job register, that's where you put the due date in at that time, and then that information is transposed over onto the dashboard. Same thing a little later, we'll talk about the occupancy type when you want to start comparing jobs. So these are some things you might want to get used to doing now when you do create a job, is to add what type it is and to add a bid due date. Occupancy type, this is what we have listed. You can certainly right click on that button and hit maintain drop down values to add your own occupancy type or to edit any that we have in here. So I'm going to go back to our dashboard, and when we come into the dashboard, again, show bids for, it defaults to the current date, October. I could tell this to show my bids that I had due in September or August or whatever, and then it will show those. Now view all jobs, if I uncheck that, it's only showing me September. If I decide to check view all jobs, and it's showing me everything that I have on there. In my case, because I have so few jobs on my system, it's okay for me to view all jobs. For you all, because you may have several jobs on there, you may only want to just narrow it down for a particular date. Let's talk a little bit about our graphs that we see. Occupancy type graph. We can see the percentages of what type of jobs we are bidding. We can actually see how many schools, hospitals, office buildings, etc., that I bidded. So in this case, I can see that I have about 27% of office buildings, schools, and I have churches. I only have one out there that represents that percent, and I have several jobs that I have not defined an occupancy type too. So that's how that will show there as well. If we look at the S by estimator graph, and this is more for those of you who are on a network and you have several estimators, this bar will show what that estimator has won, what is pending, and the gray bar is a total of what has been assigned. Can I ask that you all mute your phones, please, so that we don't pick up any of the background noise that you may have, and that way everyone will be able to hear me. So if you can mute your phone, I would appreciate that, so that we don't pick up the background noise in your office. Thank you so much. The bids and pending status, again, these are the jobs that's shown in the bid completion box. This is the bid completion status box down here. This box will only show jobs that have been completed. This one again shows the job name, the contractor that you had selected for this job, who the contact is, the bid amount, and then the status, won, lost, or pending. Make sure when you set your jobs up, if we go back to the job register, and for this particular job, I talked about setting the occupancy type, the square footage, and even the bid date. But bidding contractors, this is where you get to add who that bidding contractor is. You get to go in and add the status. Is it won, lost, or whatever, and what the amount is. So again, the more you fill out here, the better that your dashboard is going to be able to report information to you. It cannot report what you have not supplied in the job register piece. So just keep all that in mind as you start to do some of these newer jobs. You can also use this dashboard to forecast a probability of success. And the example that I'll use here, let's say you come in Monday morning and you have 3 jobs on your desk. One is a school, one is an office building, and one is a hospital. So the first thing you probably look at is who is actually bidding these jobs, so that you know who the generals are. So again, you have these 3 jobs, but maybe you really only have time to bid one of them. So normally you may say, this office looks good, I'll go with that one. But now with the dashboard, you can look at things a little differently and a little bit closer. I might say when this general contractor bids a school, he really knows schools. Schools are his thing. He knows the school boards all over the state. And I only get about 2% of his work, because he has another electrical contractor that he almost deals with exclusively. Then I might look at the hospital job, and there's 2 general contractors on that one, and when they bid hospitals, they get about 70% of the time, but I only get 10% of their work. Then when I look at the office building, one of my favorite contractors are bidding that, and I get about 85% of his work. So in that case, it's pretty obvious for me to decide which one I am going to bid. But having this status here, and to be able to know what contractors rather that you are being successful with, is what this screen can tell you when you are in a situation that you only have time to bid one job. So using the dashboard, again, it allows you to analyze the type of projects that you're doing. So instead of just reacting to any or all bids requested, you can analyze what you do, focus on what you do best, and the types of projects that are most successful for you. You also have some other graphs: bids won by month, contractors won bids percent of the time, your company bids, and bids by age. So it's a lot of information that's shown here, but again, all this information is coming from what you set up back in your job registry. The next feature I want to talk a little bit about is the bid analysis button, and the bid analysis comes more after the you've been awarded some jobs or some jobs that you want to bid. When we go into the bid analysis for job comparison, again, what happens in the bid analysis, it's going to allow you to compare this job with other similar jobs. The theory here is that you look at your history jobs in comparison to this job, which will allow you to come up with a price, and sometimes without actually having to do a full takeoff. You can just do a comparison. or maybe a contractor calls someone that you worked with before and they want a price. You can give them a ballpoint figure because you don't have time to bid it. So I could pull up 2 or 3 of like jobs, similar jobs, and maybe add 5–10% onto that, and I should be somewhere in that number. So we'll walk through this a bit more. So in this example, we're going to say that, let's say you're bidding a school and you want to look at 3 or 4 other schools that you've done recently to compare them. So I want to be able to say, here's my average. Where did this job come in as compared to the average? So it's only going to give you a certain comfort level if the job is right on it, if it's too high, if it's too low. Now, to do that, there is a few things that you do have to set up in order to get it to report the information that you need. Some I have already set up, but I'm going to walk you through just so that you understand a little bit more what it's going to actually do. So in this example, we're going to compare school jobs. When I come into my bid analysis, it defaults to bid history, okay? So what I want to do now as I look at this, I want to select the primary job. In this case, it's going to be the Kaufman Middle School. And I want to be able to compare it with additional schools that I have on my system. So in my case, I have a very few jobs here, but in you all's case, because you're going to have more than I do, for my occupancy type, rather than looking at everything, I am going to say, look at only what I've assigned as a school, and then that's what it brings up for me. And this, again, is only showing all of my completed jobs at this point. So once I pull this up, now as I look at this, I can say in this list of schools, which one do I want to compare? I don't have to compare them all. So in this case, I am going to choose the Academy Heights and the Walter Keys High School. These are the two. I do not want to compare this Belmont Elementary School, so I'm not going to put that in my list. Once I do this, I could actually save these schools as groups. I can save these as my high school, or I could choose some more and save them as my elementary. But anyway, I've gone ahead and I've checked the jobs that I want to compare. Now to clean up my screen a bit where it says show selected jobs only, if I click that, it gets rid of any additional schools that I had on there that I am not going to be using in this comparison. So I go ahead and I have all my jobs selected that I want to do. Now I'm ready to set up a task. Basically, when I say set up task, I'm similarly trying to set up so that the phases are close to what the phases will be for this Kaufman job. Of course, you're never going to get a job where they're exactly the same. But so after selecting the job to compare, I'm going to go to my task setup. Once I click on my task setup, and I'm going to drill these down here a bit so you can see. Now, I've already done the background work for these. I've already assigned these. I've already assigned tasks to these jobs, to this job. One is fixtures and so forth. I'm going to now select the 2 jobs that I am going to compare, Academy Heights, and again, I have already assigned tasks to these. When I'm going to be teaching a class, online class, and you can come in for a class just to learn more about the bid analysis. Again, because this webinar is just to highlight the features, that's what we'll be doing here. But anyway, everything has been set up. I have my main school and I have the 2 that I want to compare. So once I've done that, then my next step is to actually do the comparison. So over here on my toolbar again, I'm going to go ahead and click on comparison. And what it does, my screen is kind of split into half. I have my current project and I have my historical projects. So my current project, in this case, I believe it was the Kaufman job, it shows me my job totals, material, labor, quote, subs, and so forth, everything that I actually have on this job. If I look on the right, I have my historical project, but right now, this is actually an average of, because I had 2 jobs that I was comparing, so it takes those 2 jobs and put them together, and then it will actually allow me to compare what it is that I have. I can also look at just the material, and it breaks everything out by phases because I did set up those tasks when I was there. And so now again, I can see the material dollars here. I can see my labor dollars as well, and any quotes. In this top portion of the screen here, I'm looking at labor dollars. If I wanted to look at the labor hours, I can certainly choose that to be able to see what my labor hours are. So now I get a breakdown of all of my material and all of my labor breakout. I have it also by cost basis. Right now, these were my bid amounts. I can certainly change this to become the cost amount, what it's actually costing me to do the job. I can look at other analysis by the percent or the square foot. Remember, square foot was something else that we could have added in. Profit dollars, profit percent, and so forth based on here. So in this arena, again, if a contractor calls, again, and like I said, someone that I've worked with before, and I just want to be able to uh, quickly give them a price, I can now do that based on the historical analysis that I have. And it also may allow me to decide maybe this is not the job that I should be bidding. When we look at some of these things here, for example, the labor dollars, that's I'm sorry, the material dollars, that's taken into effect our material tax, material overhead, profit, and everything is part of that, because back when we did our bid recap, it was all part of that number as well. In this feature, when we were talking about task setup, again, in the task setup, I can add new phases. All right, phases similar to what you're doing now in IntelliBid. I could add new phases that I want to compare. I can create new templates and so forth in this here. Again, for this portion of the bid analysis, this is about as deep as I plan to go for an overview. If you certainly think this is something that you do want to use, you can start using it right away. And the key to being able to use this is a couple of things. First of all is when you do set up your jobs, make sure that you are providing the proper information that you need so that it can report that information back to you as well. Those were some of the main two features. Now, some of the other things that we've added as well that I think are also good features in this new version. I'm just going to change jobs because what I want to show now, I need to show it on a job that's not frozen. So in our takeoff, if I go back to the takeoff for this job, and all this should look familiar to you, we have an icon which is not new. This icon has been in it has been in version 7. It's called collapse expand assemblies. So as you know it, if I look at my screen now, I have several fixture assemblies in here noted by the red little icon, if you will, that starts a new assembly, and then what's in yellow is everything that's included in that assembly. If I want to look at this now and I want to collapse and I don't want to see all the yellow items, I can certainly just hit my collapse expand assembly. And so what that does for me now, I can say, for example, on these type X exit signs, I had 4 of them, and this is the material dollar that those 4 exit lights are worth, and these are the labor hours that they are worth. On my type A fluorescent 3 lamp 2x4 lay-in, I had 100 of them on the job, and so the material result is telling me that on 100 of those, this is what it is worth for me, and this is what the labor hours. So again, if I was to click this here, and if I went through and if I took a calculator and I added up all of these material dollars right here just for those yellow lines, that's what it would give me when I looked at the collapse assembly. So a lot of times that's a really good report so that you're able to kind of see where you are at this job, where you are in this job as far as the monies and the dollars. With that in mind, another feature, well, this is not a new feature. This has been in there all along. This icon here is called Resize Grid. What the Resize Grid will do is give you a little bit more real estate on the screen. So if I click the Resize Grid, basically it removes my libraries from my view so that I'm no longer looking at the libraries. It gives me a little bit more real estate on the screen. So that's what the Resize Grid means. Again, that's something that's been there all along. I just like to talk about that when I am talking about the views here. One of the other things that we've added into this release, when you're in takeoff, if you scroll over, I scroll over to the right, there are so many columns on this screen. And for the most part, you're probably only looking at the most important ones, the quantities, the unit of measure, material units, and labor units and factors. So all of this other stuff over here, we can now remove that if we opt not to see that. So if those are columns that we do not want to see, we would just go up to our maintenance, preferences, and general. And down here at the bottom where it says display takeoff items, I can certainly uncheck any of this information that I don't need to see at this particular moment, or I can go through and add them back in if I do. So once I do that, and then if I go back into my takeoff here, and I will just refresh my screen, and now if I scroll over, I've gotten rid of a lot of those columns that I had up to the top, manufacturer and so forth. Okay, so that's what that will do for you. One of the other things in the takeoff that we have added into the screen as well, we have the phase tree job spec, which is nothing new, but under the phase tree job spec here, we've added two new buttons down here, phase up and phase down. What that will allow you to do is rearrange your phase names. Remember, these are my phases. When I'm in takeoff, some people delete out the things that they don't use, or some people are just all over the screen. But with the phase up, I can move the 4 of 5 phases that I'm going to use for this job. I could move them up to the top. So for example, if I'm going to have some fire alarm on this job, I can highlight that and then hit the phase up. And so as I'm hitting phase up, it moves it up higher in that list. So that's an example of phase up, phase down. You can also do that same thing if I did have additional first floor, second floor, or that kind of thing. I can move things around. So that's what that will allow you to do. The other feature, let's go back to our fixtures. The other feature that we have in here now, for those of you who are using the bid recap, if you're using that, we've added a button up here where you can now edit the proposal right from this screen. So if I go to bid class A, these are just words normally you did not get until you did not see this bid recap until you were in your bid recap. But now if I'm in the middle of the job and I see something that I know I need to add as an exclusion, or I want to add something else in, I can certainly go in here and click that and add a fourth inclusion that I want to make sure it gets picked up. Okay, so again, these are just some of the other things that you can do, and you do not have to wait until you get back to the bid recap in order to do that. Okay, so I'm going to save that and exit that. That's pretty much what we've done in the takeoff screen. Yeah, that's pretty much what we've done in the takeoff screen. Everything else is pretty much standard what we have. What I want to go into now is summary. In the summary screen, we were able to do a few things in the summary as well. One of the things, just like in takeoff, if I scroll over here to the right, I can see that I have several columns of information over here. This feature here has all, this is, I just want to show you this has always been in the program. For example, if I wanted to move manufacturer over closer, I'm just moving it and I can drop it wherever I need it to go. So you already had that ability, capability before you go to version 8. But what in version 8, just like what I showed you in takeoff, I can decide to remove columns if I choose. Again, that would be under maintenance and preferences and general. And again, down here in my summary, display summary items, I can pick and choose what it is I want to see on that screen just by unchecking some of these things, okay? And then if I go back into my summary and refresh it, then I have, again, only what I want to be able to see on the screen. One of the other features that we did add in the summary is a column called prompt. Those of you who are using, again, the bid recap, you should be familiar with these prompt items. When you go into the bid recap, it normally will prompt you for an item that's been set to prompt, whether you set it to the prompt or somewhere in the system is set to prompt, just something that maybe needs some attention, needs more attention. So that's what the prompt. So now we added that in summary, that you can certainly click on anything here. Maybe you know you got to check a price or verify something. So I could just set these things to prompt if I needed to, and then when I do go into my bid recap, they would show up. Also, another feature in the summary, just like what you saw in the takeoff a bit ago, I can also go in here and I can update my proposal if I needed to. I can update that right here on the fly rather than waiting until I get to the bid recap rather. Okay. Um, so once we do that, everything else in the summary is still the same as far as what it is reporting here. And then the next thing I want to talk about a little bit is the actual bid recap. So when I go to the bid recap for this job, those are the quoted items for those of you who are not familiar with it. So when we go into the bid recap for this job, what you notice now, it gives you these two graphs here, bid overview and labor cost, and that is just the bid overview for this base bid for this particular job. It's just giving me more of a visual of what percentage of my labor, my quotes, my materials, and so forth. It is the same thing here that I'm going to see once I step myself through each one of these tabs. Okay, so if I go to graphs, this is a new screen in the bid recap. It gives you a lot of screens. The first one we just talked about, this bid overview, was the same bid overview that you see right here when you're in the top sheet. So again, in the bid overview, it just shows you what your labor materials are for this particular job. A lot of times you may look at the ratio of material and labor, or the percentage or total dollars, or both, of the total material and the total labor. So now you can look at your labor here, and you can look at your material, look at these two values, because if one of them is out of sync, it makes you think that something is wrong here. Maybe if you have 50% material, 20% labor, that may be a red flag, but that's what these screens are for, is for you to catch anything. So again, usually you can tell if the ratio is higher one way or higher the other way. Sometimes it could be because you have a lot of quotes, or maybe this job was a demolition job, so your labor is heavier. But start paying attention to your bid overview so that you know where everything is going. The next graph, the material subtotals. The subtotal, for those of you who are using our bid recap sheet, and for those of you who are just starting to use the bid recap, I suggest you start getting into the material subtotals. If you look at this, the material subtotal, what is a subtotal? This tab here, a subtotal is just buckets of like information. Basically, it's saying for this job, I have $46,000, $686 in material. I have 1,289 labor hours. So of this 46,686, I can see what that makes up. I can just look down this list and tell right now that my copper wire is probably where most of the money are on that for this particular job. I can see my sum for my EMT and all of these. This is an awesome screen that you can use to put in discounts or markups or things like that. If I know wire is going up about 10% in the next couple of days, I can certainly mark that up right there. Again, this stuff right here is not new. This is not new at all. This is what's already been in the system. I just kind of wanted to show that to you. But this subtotal screen, here are my labor subtotals. So again, if you're looking at this job, you should be able to look at this and say, you know what, something is wrong. I should have more labor hours in this EMT than what I'm showing, or I should have less, and it causes you to go back to make adjustments here on that job. So when we look at subtotals here, it's the same exact subtotals that I'm seeing here. It's just more of a visual that it is showing you, and it was the same thing when we looked at the subtotal screen. So I do encourage, even if you're not using our bid recap, I would encourage you to at least go this far into the job so that you can see where all the money's on the job and how they are dispersed on there. I would definitely encourage you to do that. That's a powerful screen. We also have things like our bid comparison. It shows us all the particular bids for this job and the total for each. Now on this particular job, you can see that I have a base bid, I have an alternate 1, I have an alternate 2, and I have an alternate 3. So it just kind of lines up everything, all the bid comparison within the job itself. Labor cost versus a labor type. So here are your costs, and then here are your resources or your labor types that you have on here as well. Labor breakdown, I can see what percentage is my journeyman, foreman, and apprentice here. We then get our quotes. I can see the percentages of my quotes, and if I roll over them, I can see the dollar amount in white, $35,000 on my gear, and then I got $19,000 on my fixture, so I can actually see what that dollar amount. Same thing with my equipment. I only have one piece of equipment on there, and any subcontracts that I may have, I can see those dollars as well. So again, it gives you an overall quick view of what is going on with this particular job. One of the other things that we want to do here, if I was to click on this, I'm going to click one time, and when I click it, it just makes that box a little bit bigger so I can see it. Anytime that I click on something again, it just makes the box a little bit bigger so that I can see it. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that. Now what I want to talk about a little bit here, we've kind of gone through what's going on with the graphs. The top sheet. Right here, your top sheet. In the past, the top sheet, you could never edit this sheet. This sheet was strictly set up for information. It would report back to you what you had set up on these tabs here. But now in the top sheet, as you see, we have this is new, the bid overview, the labor cost, labor type. What we can do now on the top sheets, I can actually rename columns. If the word column 1 doesn't really mean anything to you, you could actually go here and double click on that column 1, and instead of making it say column 1, maybe I wanted to say our percentage. So I can go ahead and type that in there, and now that's what that column is telling me. Something else that I could also do here, if I wanted to rename my column 2 maybe to total dollars, again I could double click on that and just type in whatever I want that column to be called. And I like that. You can make it mean more to you other than just column 1 and column 2. If you wanted to insert lines here, you can certainly insert lines now. If I wanted to insert something between lines 1 and 2, I could just right click and say insert a line, and once I come up with a new line, I can go ahead and type in whatever I wanted to type. You know, I can go ahead there and type whatever I wanted to type there for my journeyman dollars, okay? And now once I have some journeyman dollars over here, I could actually almost make this mimic Excel in a bit. I can go in and get a formula from somewhere else to pretty much populate that screen of what I wanted to put in there. So for example, if I wanted to get a value from another cell to put here, if I go to my direct labor tab, and I can see that my journeyman hours dollars here is just 26,000. I see that it's in cell M10. So if I go back to my top sheet, this is what it allows me to go. So if I now go back to my direct labor tab and get that under my total dollars right here, if I double click on there, I could actually put in the M10, and it will go and get that value for me. Excuse me. It'll go and get that value for me and populate it in. So again, you can play around with this sheet, and I think those are some pretty nice features and some things that you can certainly do there. The other thing here, we have the quote sheets, which this is nothing new, but these quotes can be set up before I get to the bid recap sheet, and I can just type them all in so that at bid time I can just come here now and type in the quotes that I got, and of course select the one that I wanted to use for the bid. Back in the bid recap, we also have one new report that we've added in here. So under the reports, we have a bid recap cost code report that we can see now. That report is generally under your direct job cost here. So what that will do, you can now add the cost codes when you're in the bid sheet rather than having to get out of the program, go back to maintenance, and add those codes in at that point. So we can actually add them in now while we're in the bid sheet forward. So for example, if I wanted to put a cost code on my temporary power or my temporary light, if I go down to edit cell formulas, it brings up this sheet, and I can scroll down to those lines that I wanted to add. So in this case, I'm going to highlight both my temporary power and my temporary light, and I'll go up, and in this case, I already had them in there, but I would go up and just add on there. I think the cost code is this 930. Do that and hit close. And what that's going to do now, it allows me to print out a report. For those of you who are not familiar with reports are in here in the upper right-hand corner. I can click on the report, bid recap cost code, and then it reports back to me what I had just put in there. So again, that was one of the newer reports that we have added in. And then another feature, once that's about it for our bid summary, another feature that we've added is back in the maintenance and the user access. Now, I don't know who has access to this, or if this is more the IT folk or whatever, but under here we can create new access levels now. Maybe I want an access level and call it estimator or a project manager or whatever, someone who just comes in every now and then. I can set up new access levels for them as well. One of the things too that we're able to do in the user access that we did is, for those of you who are using job specs and takeoff prompts that you're setting those up, there's always, when you set up a job spec, you always have an option to say update all jobs or update all new jobs. So we've added this feature in that only certain people can do that. If I do not give my estimator the option to do that, then the option there for him to go in to mess up all new jobs, because if I'm creating specs and I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing or if I've done it correctly, I could easily hit that switch and turn that on for any new job that we create. So this just gives you a little bit more comfort that everyone cannot have the option to do that. One of the other features that we added back here was user activity, and within the user activity, we've come in and we see a log off user. Now this is really applicable when you're on a network. For those of you who have several systems and on the network, this will be very beneficial to you. So in this example, maybe I am the senior estimator. I'm going to come in on Saturday so I can do some database work, because I know I cannot do that work with people in the program. So if I'm going to come in Saturday and I still cannot, because I realized maybe the owner was on there Friday and left the office but never logged himself out. So basically, as I say, I can't do any work now. So what this will allow me to do is go ahead, if I have those rights, that senior estimator, whoever, or owner would show up here, and I can certainly just log that person off so that I can get in to do the work that I need to do. So a lot of times you have users who leave the system open and they're gone on vacation, all kinds of things, and they're locking down the system for everybody. So this is a good feature that we've put in there. And then the last thing I want to talk about here briefly, and I'll just keep that real brief because a lot of people are familiar with Revit, piece of software, or BIM, building information modeling, but we do have that link in the program now, and I'm just going to, you should be able to look at my screen here so that you can see that. Let me go back down. Yeah. And basically what happens, just so you can understand what this link is doing, this is only used after you've been awarded the job. So if you do a job in IntelliBid, you win the job, you can go into the Revit software and build out the job. And I mean, like, build out your feeders, your panels, your strut hangers, and you can assign assemblies to it. For those of you who use SureCount, it's kind of the same concept. You're assigning assemblies to it. It will then send this information back into an IntelliBid, and then you could compare your estimate versus what the building is actually going to look like. So again, if you're taking off the stuff, the panels, the conduit, everything for each one of these phases, you can assign a phase and their information, and then you see this little IntelliBid link. It will send this information back into your IntelliBid, and then you can compare your estimate and feeders and compare it to the actual what it's going to look like. So right now we're actually looking at the Revit program. That's what this is doing. But again, we can link this information back to IntelliBid, and it allows you to assign your takeoff and assemblies. And this is really not designed for devices and fixtures. BIM is mostly for your trapeze, your feeders, panels, and that type of stuff. It allows you to just lay it out. You could then send your layout to the architect, make sure so that he or she can make sure that all the electrical, mechanical, HVAC structure is going to all work together, so that you're not, running into each other in the field with your design. So that's basically what this will allow you to do. If you do need any more information on that, your salesperson can certainly answer those things for you if you need any more explanation on that. That's what I have for the version 8 features. We've gone through and we've looked at these things in the version 8. If you have not upgraded yourself, I encourage you to go ahead and upgrade yourself. You can go out to the BBS and download the files. It does not take long to download these files at all. If you're not comfortable with doing the upgrade, you can certainly call the help desk if you need some assistance with them. Concerning those of you who are going to be going to training here soon, I think our next class is probably in Atlanta. We will be teaching on the version 8 software. So again, you may want to go ahead and get that installed so that you can be up with what's going on in the class and so forth. Does anyone have any questions? And again, this was just an overview. This was not a training class. So some of the things we did not get into a lot of depth on, and that was by design, but I just wanted to show you the features out there so that you can kind of understand what we're doing in the version 8. Is there any questions? Anyone have any questions concerning some of the things that we looked at?
Sherilyn, can you repeat that date on that class?
Yes, let me look it up. That one is in Atlanta, and it's November. Give me 1 second and I'll pull it up and I can tell you the exact date that class will be. Okay.
Will you guys be doing anything online with these classes?
We will be. What we do, we offer, now you can either call and say, I want a class just on, for your company, you can call and say, we just want a class on bid analysis, and that's what we would focus on,
Okay.
And when you go into the training centers, they'll talk about, some of the classes, some of these features as well. But if you just want a one-on-one on just a particular feature of what I just showed you, just for you, yourself only, or just for your company, you can certainly request that. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll look at that date. Any other questions? Anyone has any other questions?
One question, if I may. In subtotals, in bid recap, a lot of zeros usually. Any chance to change? Hide those zeros?
So in the bid recap, you're saying here.
In subtotals.
Oh, okay, yeah, subtotals. Yeah, a lot of zeros mean you didn't use this material on the job. So for this job.
I understand that, but any chance, is there any way to hide those?
I don't know if there's a filter up here that will, I see just only use the active ones. I think that's what you're asking for. Just to be able to look at the active, yeah, just to be able to look at the active subtotals. Let's see if they did that. I don't think so, but let me check on that and I will follow up with you on that because I agree it is a lot of them that we're seeing out here, and I don't see anything that we can check to, you know, just be able to show me the ones that's active, and I think that's what you're asking for.
Yeah, that's thank you.
What's your name? What's your name?
David.
I'm sorry, what is it again?
David Lopez.
David and
no.
Okay. What's the company again?
S&J.
Okay, I see it. S&J. I got you. Okay, good. Not a problem. Any other questions? Anything else that we looked at?
I do have questions, but probably that's for technical support, I guess.
Okay, yeah, if it's more of a technical, if it's more for technical support, that would be something for them to look at. Let's see, anything else? Hopefully, like I said, you all are using these features and you see some new things in here that you can certainly, you know, benefit from. If not, you know, if you have some questions on something else in the program, I can certainly help you with that as well.
I mean, I do use those. I mean, my screen is a little different than your screen was in bit history and the comparison. I don't know why.
Okay. Well, maybe you can give us a call, give the help desk a call once we go offline and try to figure out why your screen looks different.